Take off that shirt now, Sean. Let's have some fun while my dad's not here, Amanda whispered, blocking the executive office door with her body. Her red nails slowly traced the lapel of my suit as she approached with that predatory smile I had known since childhood. The air conditioning on the 32nd floor of Morrison Industries hummed softly, but it couldn't dispel the discomfort that had taken over the room. Amanda had called me in for an urgent meeting about the quarterly report, but now it was clear that her plans had nothing to do with numbers or spreadsheets. Amanda, this isn't appropriate, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady as I backed toward the huge windows that offered a panoramic view of Chicago. We're cousins, and you're married. She laughed, a humorless sound that echoed through the elegant room. Third cousins, Sean. We're barely related. And as for my marriage, she shrugged dismissively. Michael never needs to know. My name is Sean Mitchell, and at 32, I never imagined I'd be fighting off sexual harassment from my own cousin in the CEO's office of the company I've worked for 6 years. But knowing Amanda Morrison since we were kids, maybe I should have seen this coming. She had always been trouble. As a child, she broke my toys and blamed other cousins. As a teenager, she spread rumors about me at school whenever she didn't get her way. Now, as vice president of operations at her father's company, she had found more sophisticated ways to wield her power. What she didn't know was that I had been documenting her inappropriate behavior for months. Not just with me, but with other employees as well. 3 administrative assistants had been fired after rejecting her advances. 2 department managers had been mysteriously demoted after confronting her about questionable practices. You know I can make your life very difficult here, don't you? She continued, moving closer. 1 negative report from me to Daddy and you'll be looking for a job tomorrow. It was true. Richard Morrison, her father and the company's CEO, was known for blindly trusting his daughter. He saw her as his natural successor, completely ignoring her incompetence and toxic behavior. To him, Amanda was perfect, and any problems were always someone else's fault. Think about it, Sean, she murmured, her fingers playing with my tie. You can do this the easy way or the hard way. But one way or another, you're going to do it. I felt my jaw tighten as I watched her confident expression. Amanda was used to getting what she wanted through blackmail and intimidation. In her mind, I was just another employee she could manipulate without consequences. But there was something she didn't know about me. Something I discovered by accident 3 weeks ago when I was working late and found some interesting documents left on the shared printer. Documents that revealed a very specific pattern of financial irregularities directly linked to her. If you're following this story of corporate corruption and abuse of power, be sure to subscribe to the channel to see how this explosive situation unfolds. The executive elevator emitted a soft ping in the hallway. Amanda froze, her confident expression wavering for the first time. Steady footsteps approached down the marble hallway, accompanied by male voices discussing quarterly figures. Wait, she whispered, panic beginning to replace arrogance. My father isn't due back until 5. I smiled for the first time since I entered that room. I checked my watch with deliberate calm. Actually, it's exactly 3:15. He always comes back from the board meeting at this time on Tuesdays. The voices were closer now. Richard Morrison and at least 2 other people, discussing the presentation they had just given to investors. Amanda rushed to her desk, desperately trying to look busy, but her hands were shaking as she shuffled through her papers. The door opened just as she managed to position herself behind her desk, trying to assume a professional posture. But her heavy breathing and the flush on her cheeks told a different story. Amanda? Sean. Richard Morrison entered, followed by 2 men in suits whom I recognized as members of the board of directors. Their experienced eyes immediately picked up on the tension in the air. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. What happened next would change everything. Dad. Amanda practically shouted, her voice 3 octaves higher than the predatory whisper of seconds ago. What a wonderful surprise. Sean and I were just reviewing the quarterly reports you asked for. Richard Morrison was an imposing man at 62. Perfectly combed silver hair, a tailored Italian suit, and a presence that commanded instant respect in any room. His blue eyes scanned the room with the precision of someone who had built an empire on details others overlooked. Quarterly reports, he repeated slowly, looking at Amanda's completely empty desk, except for a single Mont Blanc pen out of place. Interesting. I thought I made it clear that those reports were confidential until I approved them. Amanda laughed with a forced lightness that wouldn't fool anyone over the age of 10. Oh, you know how dedicated I am, Daddy. Always anticipating your needs. I remained silent, watching the familiar dance between father and daughter. Richard Morrison loved Amanda, but he wasn't stupid. 30 years of building million-dollar businesses didn't leave a man naive about body language and inconsistencies. His eyes moved between us with growing curiosity. "Sean," he said, turning his attention to me. "How are the third quarter numbers looking? I hear you've identified some interesting irregularities." This was my chance. For weeks, I had been documenting financial discrepancies that led directly to Amanda's department. Inflated contracts with phantom suppliers, exorbitant travel expenses for conferences that never happened, bonuses approved for employees who didn't exist. But before I could respond, Amanda stepped in with that crystalline laugh she had used to defuse tense situations since she was 12. "Dad, Sean's being very thorough, as usual. Sometimes I think he sees problems where there aren't any." She shot me a look that was part warning, part challenge. "But that's exactly why we keep him around, isn't it? To give us that unique perspective." The word unique was uttered with the same tone one would use to describe an unpleasant odor. Richard nodded thoughtfully, but I noticed something in his expression that Amanda completely missed. His eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly when she mentioned problems where there aren't any. A man doesn't get to his position by ignoring red flags, especially ones coming from his own daughter. "Actually," I said calmly, "the irregularities are quite substantial. I'd like to schedule a private meeting to discuss them properly." The silence that followed was electric. Amanda froze, her smile turning into something more like a mask. The two executives accompanying Richard exchanged uncomfortable glances, clearly sensing the tension but not understanding its source. "What kind of irregularities?" Richard asked, his voice taking on that business tone his competitors had learned to fear. Amanda quickly interjected. "Dad, I'm sure we can work this out internally. Sean sometimes worries too much about minor administrative details." "Minor details," I repeated, letting a cold smile form on my lips. "Like the $243,000 in payments to Stellar Marketing Solutions over the last 8 months? The color drained from Amanda's face. Stellar Marketing Solutions was one of the shell companies I'd uncovered in my investigation. Officially, it provided digital marketing consulting services to Morrison Industries. In reality, it was a bank account in the Bahamas that Amanda used as her personal account. "Stellar Marketing has done an exceptional job on our new digital campaign," she said quickly, but her voice betrayed her panic. "The results speak for themselves." "What results?" I asked, feigning genuine curiosity. Because when I called them last week, the number was disconnected. And when I looked up their business address, I found that it's an abandoned warehouse in Detroit. The silence was now deafening. Richard Morrison straightened slowly, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw something dangerous flash in his eyes. Not anger yet, but the kind of predatory focus that turned ordinary businessmen into corporate sharks. "Amanda," his voice was low, controlled, "can you give us a few minutes? I need to discuss some technical details with Sean." It was like watching a child realize that her lies had finally been exposed. Amanda looked between me and her father, desperately calculating her options. For a moment, I thought she would try one more manipulation, one more distraction. Instead, she headed for the door with her chin held high, trying to maintain some dignity. But as she passed me, she whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "You're going to regret this." The door closed with a soft click, leaving us alone. Richard Morrison approached the window, looking out at the city he had helped build for 30 years. When he turned to me, his expression was unreadable. "Sean, you've worked here for 6 years," he said slowly. "You've always been meticulous, honest, reliable. Amanda is my daughter, and I love her unconditionally. But she's also the vice president of this company, and I didn't build Morrison Industries by ignoring problems because they were inconvenient." He paused, studying my face. "So I'm going to ask you once, and I need you to be completely honest with me. What the hell is going on in my operations department?" It was the moment I'd been waiting for months. I took a folder out of my suit and placed it on Amanda's desk. Inside were photocopies of bank statements, fraudulent contracts, emails Amanda thought she had deleted, and a detailed timeline showing how she had systematically embezzled company funds. "Mr. Morrison," I said, my voice firm, "your daughter has stolen over $500,000 from Morrison Industries over the past 2 years. And that's just what I've been able to track down so far." Richard opened the folder silently, his eyes scanning the documents with the speed of someone accustomed to processing complex information quickly. I saw his jaw clench when he reached the Bahamian bank statements. His eyebrows furrowed when he saw the emails where Amanda discussed openly how the old man would never find out about the transactions. "My God," he muttered, sinking into a chair. "How long have you known about this?" "I discovered the first discrepancies 3 months ago," I admitted. "But it took time to be sure. Amanda is your daughter, Mr. Morrison. I needed to be absolutely certain before I brought this information to you." He nodded slowly, still leafing through the documents. "And you didn't confront Amanda directly because she has already shown that she is willing to use her position and her relationship with you to eliminate anyone who threatens her." I took a deep breath. "Mr. Morrison, Amanda isn't just a thief. She's a predator. Over the past 2 years, she has sexually harassed at least 5 different employees. When they rejected her advances or threatened to report her, she found ways to destroy their careers." Richard's face turned gray. "You have evidence of that, too." I pulled out a second folder, this one even thicker than the first. Signed statements, audio recordings, text messages, emails. Amanda documented her own inappropriate conduct so meticulously that it almost seemed intentional. He took the second folder with slightly trembling hands. When he opened it and saw the first page, a transcript of messages in which Amanda explicitly blackmailed an administrative assistant with dismissal if he didn't spend the night with her, his head fell into his hands. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "How did I not see this? How did I let it get to this point?" "Because she's your daughter," I replied softly. "And because she's extremely skilled at manipulation. She knew exactly how to exploit your love for her." Richard remained silent for several long minutes, processing the full weight of the revelations. When he finally lifted his head, his eyes had a hardness I had never seen before. "What do you want from me, Sean?" The question caught me off guard. "Sir, you've had this information for months. You could have leaked it to the press, gone to the police, sued the company. Instead, you came directly to me, knowing it would destroy my family. Why?" I thought carefully before answering. "Because I believe in Morrison Industries, Mr. Morrison. I believe in what this company stands for. Amanda may be your daughter, but she is not this company. And this company does not deserve to die because of her crimes." He nodded slowly, closing both briefcases. "And what do you suggest we do?" "I suggest we call our lawyers," I replied without hesitation. "Amanda has committed federal crimes. This goes beyond family or internal corporate issues." Richard stood up, walking back to the window. For several minutes, he stared out at the city in silence. When he turned back, his expression was resolute. "Sean, from now on, you report directly to me. I want you to organize an emergency meeting with our legal counsel first thing in the morning. And I want you to prepare a full report on every suspicious transaction, every employee affected, every penny that may have been stolen." He paused, his voice growing lower. "And Sean? Effective immediately, you have full authority to investigate any aspect of Amanda's operations. No restrictions." I nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and apprehension. "And Amanda?" A cold smile crossed his face. "Amanda will find out that Daddy doesn't always believe everything she says." He headed for the door, then stopped. "One last thing, Sean. You mentioned that Amanda threatened you. What kind of threat?" I hesitated, then decided on complete honesty. "She said I'd regret exposing her. Knowing Amanda, that probably means she'll try to frame me somehow, or destroy my reputation before you can act." Richard nodded grimly. "Then I suggest you be very, very careful over the next 48 hours. Amanda may be my daughter, but when she feels cornered, she's capable of anything." When he left, closing the door behind him, I remained alone in Amanda's office. I looked around the luxurious room, expensive artwork, imported furniture, a prime view of the city, all paid for with money stolen from the company itself. My phone vibrated with a text message from an unknown number. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." I hope you enjoyed your last day at work. I smiled, tucking the phone into my pocket. Amanda still didn't understand that the rules of the game had completely changed. And she was about to find out exactly what it means to face someone who has finally stopped being afraid of her. The next morning, I found my desk ransacked. Not in an obvious way, Amanda was more subtle than that. Digital files had been accessed during the night. Corporate passwords that had worked on Friday now returned, access denied. My ID card beeped at doors I had always walked through freely. Technical issues, David from IT explained when I called, but his voice carried unease. Amanda requested a general security audit. Standard protocol. Standard protocol. Amanda was moving her pieces faster than I expected. My phone vibrated with an internal call. Sean, please come to my office immediately. Amanda's voice was too professional, too controlled. I found her sitting behind her desk, accompanied by Jennifer Walsh, our Human Resources Director. Jennifer avoided my gaze, never a good sign. Sean, we've received some concerns about your recent behavior, Amanda began, her voice honey and venom. Employees have reported that you've been asking inappropriate questions about confidential operations. What kind of questions? I asked calmly. Jennifer consulted her notes. Unauthorized investigations into suppliers, accessing files outside your jurisdiction, contacting third-party companies without prior approval. Each accusation was meticulously crafted but technically plausible. Amanda had studied my activities and turned legitimate investigation into apparent misconduct. In addition, Amanda continued, there have been reports of inappropriate behavior in meetings. Comments that have made some female colleagues uncomfortable. My jaw tightened. She was inverting the narrative, turning her own predatory conduct into accusations against me. We're implementing a performance improvement plan, Jennifer announced, sliding documents across the table. Direct supervision, weekly progress meetings, access restrictions pending further evaluation. It was a brilliant play. Amanda couldn't fire me right away. That would raise suspicions after my conversation with Richard. But she could neutralize me, restrict my investigative ability while covering her tracks. I understand, I replied, signing the documents. Jennifer seemed surprised by my cooperation. Amanda smiled, confident she had me cornered. Excellent. I'm sure we can resolve these issues quickly. I left the meeting with official restrictions, but also with valuable information. Amanda had revealed exactly which areas she considered threatening. Each accusation was a map of where I was getting too close to the truth. That night, at home, I organized everything I had discovered so far. Amanda thought she had silenced me, but she had underestimated my patience. 6 years at Morrison Industries had taught me that corporate systems have multiple points of access. If I couldn't investigate officially, I would find unofficial ways. My phone rang. Unknown number. Sean? It's Margaret from the night cleaning crew. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. I need to talk to you. Amanda isn't the only one doing strange things around here. Margaret had worked on the executive floors for 15 years. She saw everything, heard everything, and no one noticed her. Can I stop by your apartment tomorrow night? She asked. I have some things you need to see. When I hung up, I realized that Amanda had made her first real strategic mistake. By trying to isolate me, she had forced other employees to choose sides. And some people had seen enough to know which side of the fence they wanted to be on. Amanda was setting me up for a fall, but without realizing it, she had given me exactly the allies I needed. Unlike her, I never underestimated the power of the people everyone ignored. Margaret arrived at the agreed time, carrying a discreet shopping bag that looked like it contained groceries. At 62, she had mastered the art of going unnoticed, a skill that would become my greatest advantage. 15 years cleaning executive offices teaches you a lot about powerful people, she said, settling into my living room. Most forget that we have eyes and ears. She opened her bag, revealing not groceries, but an impressive collection of evidence. Documents from Amanda's trash, audio recordings accidentally picked up by cleaning devices, even photographs of meetings that were supposed to never happen. Amanda isn't careful when she thinks she's alone, Margaret explained. Last week, I found this conversation recorded on the security system. She played an audio file on her phone. Amanda's voice echoed clearly, Dad is getting suspicious of Sean. I need to speed up the plans. If I can get him fired before the annual audit, I can pin all the irregularities on him. My jaw clenched. Amanda wasn't just neutralizing me, she was setting me up to be the scapegoat for her own crimes. There's more, Margaret continued, showing me bank statements she'd found in a forgotten printer. She's moving money to offshore accounts. A lot of money. I scanned the documents carefully. Amanda had dramatically accelerated her embezzlement over the past 30 days. Nearly $200,000 transferred to accounts in the Cayman Islands, all authorized with Richard's forged signature. Why are you helping me? I asked. Margaret sighed deeply. My granddaughter started as an intern here last year. Bright girl, business degree from Northwestern. Amanda made her life hell for 3 months until she quit and took a job in another city. Her voice hardened. I found out later that Amanda told other companies that my granddaughter had been fired for theft. Complete lie, but enough to ruin her reputation. Nobody messes with my family. We spent the next 3 hours organizing a meticulous plan. Margaret would continue gathering evidence from inside the company, while I investigated Amanda's outside connections. Timing would be crucial. We had to act before she could frame me for good. There's an emergency board meeting scheduled for Friday, Margaret revealed. Richard called it after your conversation. Amanda doesn't know, but I heard him tell his assistant it would be about serious internal issues. Friday. That gave me exactly 4 days to gather enough evidence to bury Amanda permanently. It wouldn't be just my word against hers. It would be an avalanche of proof that no amount of spin could contest. On Wednesday, I discreetly visited 3 former employees whom Amanda had unfairly fired. Each had a similar story: harassment, blackmail, intimidation, followed by dismissal on fabricated grounds. What surprised me most was discovering that they had all carefully documented their cases, keeping evidence in the hope of someday getting justice. We never had the courage to confront Richard directly, explained Tom Martinez, a former marketing manager. Amanda always said he would never believe us over his own daughter. Would you believe me if I said that could change? I asked. His eyes lit up with a mixture of hope and skepticism. What do you have in mind? By Thursday night, I had 23 signed statements, 47 audio recordings, bank statements from 5 different accounts, and a detailed timeline covering 3 years of systematic corruption. Margaret had obtained even more documents, including emails where Amanda openly discussed how to manipulate the old man to get approvals. But Amanda wasn't standing still either. My access to the system was completely blocked. Colleagues began avoiding me in the hallways. Rumors about my mental instability circulated discreetly through the departments. The final straw came on Thursday afternoon. I received official notification: internal investigation for possible financial misconduct. Amanda had found irregularities in accounts under my supervision, irregularities she herself had created. If you're following this corporate battle between justice and corruption, subscribe to the channel to find out how this fraudulent investigation would become the very instrument of Amanda's downfall. When I got home that night, I found a message on my cell phone. Unknown number, but I recognized the voice immediately. Sean, this is Richard Morrison. I need to see you at my house tomorrow at 8 in the morning. Before the board meeting. There are some things I found out about Amanda that you need to know. Her voice carried a gravity I'd never heard before. And Sean? Bring everything you've got. It's time to end this once and for all. I hung up the phone and looked at the files organized on my dining room table. 23 lives destroyed by Amanda. Hundreds of thousands of dollars stolen. Years of systematic corruption masquerading as family success. For the first time in weeks, I smiled genuinely. Amanda had spent so much time orchestrating my downfall that she failed to notice one fundamental thing. While she was playing political games, I was building a criminal case. And unlike her, I wasn't leaving any evidence behind. The game had changed completely, and Amanda didn't even know she'd lost. Richard Morrison's Lake Forest mansion looked different in the morning light. Less imposing, more vulnerable, like a powerful man facing the first real crisis of his life. Richard greeted me at the door personally, dismissing the domestic staff. His eyes were red, suggesting a sleepless night. In his private living room, I found something I never expected to see: my investigation spread out over every available surface, but multiplied by 10. I spent the whole night on the phone, he said without preamble. Lawyers, auditors, private investigators. Sean, what you've uncovered is just the tip of the iceberg. He showed me documents that made my discoveries look small. Amanda hadn't stolen $500,000. She'd embezzled $3.2 million over 5 years. She didn't have a few shell companies. She had an entire network of fake companies operating in 7 different countries. How did you get all this in one night? I asked, stunned. Because now I knew what to look for, Richard replied grimly. You gave me the right questions. The right contacts did the rest. He paused, staring out the window. Amanda isn't just a thief, Sean. She's a professional criminal using my company as her base of operations. At 9 o'clock, we arrived at the office together. The board meeting was scheduled for 10, but Richard had called Amanda in for a private chat at 9:30. She arrived on time, wearing her favorite power suit, navy Armani that probably cost more than a junior employee's monthly salary. Her confident smile faltered slightly when she saw me sitting next to her father at the conference table. Dad, why is Sean here? Her voice carried barely concealed irritation. I thought we agreed on his limitations after our conversation yesterday. Sit down, Amanda, Richard said, his voice carrying an authority she didn't dare challenge. He slid the first folder across the table. Amanda opened it with curiosity that quickly turned to barely contained panic. Inside were the offshore account statements, each transaction highlighted in yellow. Would you explain to me why $300,000 from the Morrison Industries emergency contingency account was transferred to an account in the Cayman Islands last week? Amanda swallowed hard, but her recovery was impressive. Dad, you asked me to diversify our international investments. This account is part of the strategy we discussed. Discussed? Richard interrupted. Interesting. Because here's the recording of our last investment meeting. He pressed play on a small tape recorder. His own voice echoed through the room. Amanda, I want you to keep all funds in domestic accounts until we resolve the audit for the next quarter. No international transactions until I expressly authorize them. Amanda's recorded response was crystal clear. Of course, Dad. No international transactions. Understood perfectly. The silence that followed was deafening. I saw the exact moment when Amanda realized that her usual lies wouldn't work this time. There is an explanation, she began, but Richard raised his hand. I'm not done yet. He slid the second folder across the table. Stellar Marketing Solutions, Creative Brand Dynamics, Innovation Hub LLC. 5 companies you've created in the last 2 years. All of them have received substantial payments from Morrison Industries for services that were never rendered. Amanda opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time since she had known him, she was speechless. But here's my favorite part, Richard continued, producing a third, even thicker folder. The emails. He began reading aloud, to David Morrison, Morrison and Associates. David, as we discussed, my idiot cousin is getting suspicious of the financial operations. We need to accelerate our plans to transfer him or eliminate him before he causes real problems. I've attached some fabricated evidence we can use if necessary. Amanda turned white as a sheet. Dad, I can explain. I'm not finished, he said, his voice now icy. Here's another one, to Timothy Chen Investments. Tim, I confirm that the forged documents are ready. If Sean continues to ask questions, we can implement Plan B as discussed. The sexual harassment charges will get him fired immediately and destroy his credibility permanently. My jaw clenched. Amanda wasn't just planning to ruin me financially. She was preparing false accusations of sexual harassment to destroy my life completely. Amanda, Richard said, slamming the folder shut with a final thud. You didn't just steal from my company. You conspired to destroy an honest employee through false criminal accusations. That's when Amanda made her last desperate move. Tears sprang from her eyes with surprising speed. Daddy, you don't understand, she sobbed. Sean has been harassing me for months. Yesterday he cornered me in my office and tried to force me to. She stopped, as if the words were too painful. For a moment, I felt my stomach sink. It was her word against mine, and she was Richard's daughter. But Richard simply sighed and pressed another button on the tape recorder. Amanda, this is highly inappropriate. We're cousins, and you're married. My own voice echoed through the room, followed by her response, third cousins, Sean. We're barely related. And as for my marriage, Michael never needs to know. The recording continued, capturing her every word, every advance, every threat. Amanda stopped crying instantly, realizing she had been recorded during our entire interaction the previous day. How? She whispered. Margaret from housekeeping installed recording devices in your office 3 weeks ago, Richard explained calmly. At my request, after Sean brought me initial concerns about your behavior. The final recognition washed over Amanda's face like a wave. It wasn't just that she'd been caught, it was that she'd been systematically investigated for weeks, every move documented, every lie recorded, every crime catalogued. Dad, she whispered, I'm your daughter. Richard rose slowly, walking to the window. For long minutes, he stared out at the city he had helped build. You were my daughter, he said finally, without turning. The Amanda I knew died the moment she decided that stealing from me and destroying innocent people was acceptable. He turned, and I saw tears in his eyes for the first time. The woman sitting at this table is a criminal who happens to share my DNA. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Morrison, the lawyers are here. Send them in, Richard replied. The door opened and 3 men in suits entered, followed by 2 women I recognized as Chicago police detectives. Amanda Morrison, one of the detectives said, you're under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, extortion, and conspiracy to commit false criminal accusations. As the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, Amanda looked at me with pure hatred. This isn't over, she hissed. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Actually, Amanda, it's been over for a long time. You just didn't realize it. As she was led away, I heard Richard whisper behind me, forgive me for not seeing this sooner, Sean. Forgive me for almost letting her destroy you. The board meeting was cancelled. It was no longer necessary. Amanda Morrison, the youngest vice president in the history of Morrison Industries, had officially become her most corrupt former employee. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. 6 months later, the federal courtroom was silent as the judge read Amanda Morrison's sentence. 7 years in federal prison for embezzlement, wire fraud, and extortion. Plus $50 million in restitution she would never be able to pay. I watched her from the public gallery as the bailiffs handcuffed her. Her Armani power suit had been replaced by a standard orange jumpsuit. Her hair, always impeccably styled, was pulled back into a simple ponytail. For the first time since I had known her, Amanda Morrison looked exactly what she had always been beneath all the facades, an ordinary person who believed that stealing and hurting others was an acceptable shortcut to success. She didn't look in my direction as she was led away. There was no arrogance, no defiance, just weary resignation. 7 years would give her plenty of time to reflect on the choices that had brought her there. The transformation at Morrison Industries was immediate and profound. Richard implemented radical transparency policies that became a model for other companies. Independent quarterly audits, anonymous reporting channels, and a new code of conduct that made no exceptions for family or seniority. I'm retiring at the end of the year, Richard told me during a private meeting 3 weeks after the trial. The company needs new leadership, someone who understands that integrity is non-negotiable. When the board offered me the position of CEO, I hesitated. Not because I doubted my abilities, but because I understood the weight of the responsibility. Accepting meant ensuring that no employee would ever go through what I had, that no Amanda Morrison would ever be able to hide behind nepotism again. Margaret, who had become a close ally throughout the process, was promoted to compliance supervisor. 15 years of watching corruption has taught me exactly what to look for, she said, smiling. Now I can do something about it. Tom Martinez, one of the former employees Amanda had wrongfully fired, returned as marketing director. Sarah Chun, another victim of Amanda's harassment, agreed to lead our new human resources department. Each hire was a small act of justice, each promotion a correction of past injustices. The most significant change, however, was cultural. Employees who once walked the halls afraid to draw attention now actively participated in meetings. Ideas were judged on merit, not on the rank of the person who presented them. The atmosphere of silent terror that Amanda had cultivated was replaced by something I had never experienced in a corporate setting: genuine hope. 6 months into my new position, I received a letter in the mail. Amanda had written 3 pages in careful handwriting, but the content surprised me. It wasn't threats or self-pity. It was a complete confession, not just of the crimes we already knew about, but of others, employees she had sabotaged, contracts she had manipulated, lives she had destroyed over the course of a decade. "I don't expect forgiveness," she wrote on the last page. "But perhaps my belated honesty will help you find other victims who deserve justice. I have discovered that the person I have deceived most over the years is myself." I used the information in the letter to track down 23 more former employees who had been harmed by Amanda. We established a restitution fund, offered job placement, and in some cases simply apologized on behalf of the company. I couldn't undo years of pain, but I could acknowledge that it had happened and do everything in my power to right it. The sweetest victory came 9 months after I became CEO. Morrison Industries was recognized by Forbes as one of the best companies to work for in America. The article specifically mentioned our extraordinary cultural transformation and unwavering commitment to ethical practices. Richard called me on the day it was published. "Your mother would be proud," he said, his voice heavy with emotion he rarely showed. "Amanda nearly destroyed the legacy I built in 30 years. You didn't just save it, you made it better than I ever thought possible." During the celebratory lunch with my team, I looked around the table and saw faces that a year ago had been marked by fear and resignation. Now they glowed with genuine engagement and pride in the work we were doing together. Margaret laughed loudly at one of Tom's jokes. Sarah presented innovative ideas with a confidence she had never had under Amanda. The transformation did not come with Amanda's downfall, but long before, when I realized that my goal was not to destroy her, but to rebuild what had been corrupted. The deepest satisfaction did not come from seeing her face the consequences, but from restoring institutions, relationships, and principles that had seemed irretrievably lost. 5 years later, I look out at Chicago from my 42nd floor office window. The same streets, the same buildings, but an entirely different ecosystem. People who once operated in the shadows now work in the sunlight. Those who were silenced now speak freely. As for Amanda, I hear she found a different kind of purpose in prison, helping other female inmates with financial literacy. Sometimes the most painful fall is the beginning of the most necessary journey. If this story of corporate transformation and justice has inspired you, subscribe to the channel right now. We have dozens of similar stories about people who refused to accept injustice and turned their defeats into extraordinary victories. Click the bell icon to never miss an update. Last week, I stumbled across an old photo of us at a company picnic, back when Amanda and I worked well together, before ambition turned collaboration into competition. I felt no anger or vindictive satisfaction, just the quiet understanding that some stories need to end so that others can begin. I kept the photo not as a trophy, but as a reminder of the price of confusing success with meaning. Amanda tried to destroy me by using my own decency against me. In the end, it was that very decency that built something better than either of us could have imagined. Today, when employees come to me with problems or concerns, I always welcome them with open doors. Because I've learned that true leadership doesn't come from controlling people through fear, but from creating spaces where truth can exist without destructive consequences. And every morning when I walk into this office, I smile, remembering that the biggest victory wasn't over Amanda Morrison. It was over the silence that almost consumed me.